basketball guys, we have news. Let's go to more news from the Golden State Warriors, but before that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. The Warriors are looking to sign another star so they can reach the playoffs more easily. Rumors: Warriors are willing to make a big deal for Jimmy Butler. The Golden State Warriors have already kicked off trade season by swinging a deal for Dennis Schroeder, giving them some much-needed additional playmaking, scoring, and point-of-attack defense, helping compensate for the season-ending injury of DeAnthony Melton. Schroeder is already drawing rave reviews from Stephen Curry and Steve Kerr, and he is expected to immediately step into the starting lineup following his arrival from the Brooklyn Nets. But amid the Warriors' fall down the NBA standings, there could still be a trade or two for Golden State to pull off. They have been struggling to achieve a sense of two-way balance as of late, and at this point, it's not looking like they have enough to challenge the inner circle of contending teams for the right to be called the champion of the association. The Warriors definitely have a few avenues left to improve the roster further, although as is the case with any blockbuster trade, they will have to part ways with a valued member of the team. The likes of Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Brandon Podziemski could be on the move, although the Dubs have shown in recent years that they aren't exactly in the market for league-altering trades, but rather, deals on the margins that don't require them to mortgage their future. It will all depend on the trade market whether or not the Warriors could snag another upgrade for cheap, similar to what they did in their trade for Schroeder. But they should at least try to acquire this player to give Curry the best chance at one last championship hurrah. Warriors go all in on Jimmy Butler trade. Warriors trade Andrew Wiggins, Brandon Podziemski, Kyle Anderson, Gary Payton II, 2028 GSW first-round pick. Heat trade Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler stands out as the best player available on the trade market, and the Miami Heat have already reportedly made him available in a potential deal, with Butler and his camp reportedly welcoming a potential trade to the Warriors. This could mean that acquiring Butler won't just be a one-year rental, as it is likely that the veteran forward re-signs with one of his preferred destinations. He has a player option for the 2025-26 season that he's likely to decline. Butler, however, is making $48.8 million this season, complicating any negotiations between the Warriors and the Heat. Golden State will have to let go of its precious depth to bring the veteran star in, which will be hard for Steve Kerr to do amid his preference to play a 12-man rotation. Any Butler trade will have to start with Andrew Wiggins, no ifs or buts. Draymond Green could be the main salary-matching piece, but the Warriors will not want to lose Green, considering he's the team's defensive anchor and heart and soul. Wiggins is a valuable 3-and-D player who has bounced back from a terrible past 2 seasons, but acquiring talent requires giving up talent in return. Butler is not the floor spacer Wiggins is, but he's just about better than him at every other facet of the game. The Heat star can play bully ball on the interior, handle the rock and create for both himself and others, while he could also assume a huge defensive role, especially when he's no longer the focal point of his team's offense. In Butler's most recent game, he also showed that he can still rack up stats with the best of them. He put up his best game of the season yet, tallying 35 points, 19 rebounds, and 10 assists despite the loss. His grit and ability to just get things done, whatever the team needs out of him, he can fill, will up the Warriors' championship equity considerably, as they won't need to rely too much on hitting their jump shots to win ball games. Giving up Brandon Podziemski will be another sore spot for the Warriors. Dennis Schroeder's arrival, however, should push Podziemski down the pecking order for the team anyway. Podziemski is in the middle of a brutal sophomore slump, and the Warriors may be selling low on him by including him in this trade, but Butler is a proven playoff riser who will give the Warriors a much-needed star on the wing. Losing Gary Payton II will sting, as he is a winning player. The same goes for Kyle Anderson. But the Warriors will have no other recourse but to add them in a potential Butler trade due to their salaries. But at the very least, this potential trade will have the unintended consequence of trimming down the Warriors' roster fat, which will then prevent Kerr from running a larger rotation than necessary. Warriors come to Brandon Podziemski realization that many fans already knew. After so many expectations of a significant leap entering his second year, it's been anything but for Brandon Podziemski over the first 25 games of the Golden State Warriors season. Podziemski's poor form has led to a raft of often over-the-top criticism on social media, but even he himself would acknowledge that his production has been far below his own lofty expectations. The Warriors have come to a realization on Brandon Podziemski. It must be said that the Warriors haven't helped Podziemski by any means. Sure, he may have been given the playing time that so many fellow young players haven't been afforded at the franchise in recent years, but it actually went too far to the point where the responsibility simply didn't match up to Podziemski's skill set and experience. After choosing to waive Chris Paul and allowing him to walk to the San Antonio Spurs in free agency, Golden State essentially announced their intentions for Podziemski when they chose not to add another veteran point guard. Not only did they pigeonhole Podziemski into having to play point guard minutes without any prior experience, but they did so without having a safety valve in place that could step in quickly if things went awry. The fact the Warriors didn't try to protect themselves from such an obvious risk is quite simply mind-boggling, with the below quote from this article on September 6 outlining an almost inevitable issue that was going to arise. At this stage there appears to be little in the way of contingency plans if Stephen Curry goes down, or if Podziemski simply proves incapable of running an NBA offense so early in his career. It took until a quarter of the way through the season, but the Warriors finally came to the realization that they made a mistake. Speaking on Tuesday, head coach Steve Kerr, via 95.7 The Game, admitted that the franchise has put Podziemski in a tough spot. He's really ideally suited as a secondary playmaker, not the primary shot creator. I think we've put him in a tough spot this year, based on our roster and based on our combinations, Kerr said. The Warriors are actually very fortunate that at the same time they came to this realization, an obvious solution became available via the trade market. There's no coincidence that Golden State traded for Dennis Schroeder as quickly as they possibly could, sending out DeAnthony Melton, Reese Beekman, and 3 second-round picks in a deal that became official on Sunday. It will now be interesting to see how Podziemski plays alongside Schroeder in the Warrior second unit, and whether he can rediscover last season's impact without the point guard burden that was initially placed upon him. With Draymond Green and Dennis Schroeder, Warriors are built on scrappiness. And that might be just what they need. When the Golden State Warriors acquired Dennis Schroeder in a trade with the Brooklyn Nets over the weekend, they did more than just add a trusty veteran point guard to replace the injured DeAnthony Melton. They also took a step towards becoming the scrappiest and grittiest team in the NBA. Draymond Green has long been known for his intensity, fearlessness, and grit, which sometimes is the catalyst for championship-level success, and other times crosses a few lines. Schroeder, while not really having the reputation for either the championships or the line crossing, has also been long known as a scrappy player who is never afraid to mix it up. If you think he's backing down from anyone, anything, or any situation, you're sorely mistaken. There's always a chance that pairing two such players together will be an oil and vinegar situation, but usually these types of players attract each other. There's a famous story of Kobe Bryant recruiting Matt Barnes to the Lakers, after the two partook in their fair share of tussles, by saying, "Anyone crazy enough to mess with me is crazy enough to play with me." That generally seems to be the sentiment among the league's peskiest players. In the aftermath of the signing, Green had nothing but praise for his new teammate. That, combined with Mike Dunleavy Jr. saying that he got a thumbs up from Green and Steph Curry to go through with the trade, suggests that the pairing should work well. And with that, the Warriors, generally known for their gorgeous motion offense and three-point shooting, are rebranding as a scrappy and gritty team. I'm not sure there's a player in the NBA who wants to be near Green or Schroeder when a loose ball is to be fought for, and if you're compiling the league's all want back down win shove team, or an all likely to insult you to your face with the game on the line team, Green and Schroeder are probably first teamers. That's to make no mention of second-year guard Brandon Podziemski, who has developed that reputation as well. Pods led the NBA in charges taken as a rookie, and spent the preseason getting his nose broken and jumping right back into action, despite the games being meaningless. He might not have earned the reputation or minutes as his veteran teammates, but he's certainly moving in that direction. It's a fun juxtaposition. Perhaps no player in the league epitomizes modern basketball and all its grace and fluidity like Curry, yet Green, Schroeder, and Podziemski are throwbacks to the 90s, three players who would have been more than happy to suit up for the bad boy Pistons and lean a shoulder into Michael Jordan. Curry can still carry the team, but with Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant gone, a little rebranding was in order. The Dubs have been one of the better defensive teams in the NBA all year, and now they have the gritty, scrappy, never-back-down attitude to match it.